my heart, and I know that of the one of the organizers, Kenji, who really felt like it was Kenji right there. It felt like this was really important to bring to people's attention, and that is bone marrow donation, which in the Asian American community, it is very difficult to find donors, much more difficult than it is for the general population, and this is something which can really make the difference of life or death for some of the people who are in need of a bone marrow transplant. So today we have some representatives who are here to talk a little bit about this, and we'd like to invite them to come out along with their mascot. And I didn't know, did the mascot have a name?
Comey? Comey.
Comey, all right.
Comey the mascot.
So joining us today, and I'll just have you kind of line up here, we have a representative from the Asian American Donor Program, which is based in Alameda, I believe, Thi Ly, who is here, and she'll speak a little bit about that agency. We also have Vincent Pan, who's the gentleman, the other gentleman, I was going to say in the check shirt, but you're both wearing check shirts. Vincent Pan, the Executive Director of Chinese for Affirmative Action, he'll speak about his role of being a bone marrow donor. And lastly, we have another inspiring story of survivor, Ryan Manansala, right? Who survived leukemia and received a transplant last year and is looking fabulous.
Fantastic.
So please welcome them to the stage. Let's start with you first, Thi. Talk a little bit about what the need is, not just in the Bay Area, but also nationally.
So right now, every year, there are many people with cancer, blood cancer, such as leukemia and lymphoma, looking for a match. And we're really trying to raise more awareness within the minority populations, especially because there are a lot of need. And the more people who are aware of it and know how simple it is, it's the more patients will be finding matches. So again, if you're 18 to 44 years old, please do register.
And as I understand it, once you register, it isn't just helping people within the local Bay Area community. It actually goes nationally, that you could help patients anywhere in the United States.
And also abroad, actually, because we share our registry with other partnering organizations abroad as well.
And it sounds to me, just really briefly, like it's pretty easy to actually become registered. It's just like a swab. There's no long needles or anything like that, right?
That is correct. All you're doing is filling out a consent form and doing cheek swabs, pretty much just Q-tips, brushing it inside the corners of your cheeks for about 10 seconds each, and you're done. That's it.
Okay, so now that we have a little bit of a sense of what the need is, I think George is going to talk to Ryan a little bit about, what the difference you can make and what the difference it makes in people's lives.
Yes, thanks, Jenna. And I did a story actually for NBC Bay Area about Ryan last year. And Ryan, I want to ask you because last year we were talking to you, and since then you've had a transplant. And how are you feeling right now?
So right now I'm feeling great. It's been 9 months, today actually. So,
congratulations.
9 months today! Fantastic.
Yes, it's been 9 months, and basically a lot of it is like wear and tear from the chemo and radiation, but other than that, I'm on some medication that's keeping me, like preventing some negative side effects from the transplant, but everything else is pretty good actually.
Take us back before. How long have you been fighting this?
So I was fighting it for about a year. So when I found out, the day I found out, I was in hospital for 3 months straight, going through chemo, and then after that, that's when we met AADP, and then we started to find a match, starting to work for that, and then as we did our interview, and then luckily 3 months later, I found a match, and then went to Seattle for a transplant.
What was that like for you and your family when you heard that you had a match? That must have been exhilarating.
Yeah, at first you can't really believe it, because especially for a bone marrow match, it's almost like hitting the lottery, because I'm Filipino, and percentage is about like 0.02% chance of actually fighting a match. But I actually found a cord blood match, which is kind of different. So that happened to work out, and really, like, me and my family were pretty much in disbelief, but and obviously it's working. So.
Yes, and make your sales pitch here, because you are a survivor. You're a living proof of this program and the importance to have this program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one survivor, but it was me and a lot of other people who was kind of like on that flyer, and then a lot of them actually didn't make it. So I know that's, I'm a good representation of somebody that survived, but a lot of people that didn't make it. So I mean, and at the hospital where I stayed at, we had a whole floor of all bone marrow transplants, and it's different when you hear 10,000 people need it every year and actually see it. And I just want to tell you, like, a lot of people do need it, and they're still in the hospital and still waiting.
Well, Ryan, thank you for sharing your story. I find it very inspiring. And give a round of applause for Ryan Manansala. And Jana?
And that was something that, Ryan, that you said that I think is really important for people to hear. It's a little bit different. I mean, the procedure itself, I just did a story for Channel 2 about a bone marrow transplant between this 5-year-old Vietnamese boy who was adopted to the United States, and they had to go back to Vietnam and try and find his birth family. Because unlike blood donation, where you might be type A, B, or O, and you can donate and other people can receive it, with bone marrow matches, it really depends a lot, oftentimes, on ethnicity. And you mentioned you're Filipino, so trying to find somebody who has that similar kind of genetic match can be very challenging, especially if there aren't that many donors from within your ethnic group. And I want to bring it over now to Vincent, and I just wanted to say, what is it that inspired you, or what is it that motivated you to become a donor?
So probably about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big event, maybe something like this, and the Asian American Donor Program was recruited, and they were looking for donors, and particularly they were telling a story about people, friends of friends, who were trying to organize people to sign up in order to find a match. And so it was actually years later that I was actually identified as a match, but it was a very, very simple thing, like the people here today. You just go over, and I did a Q-tip swab, and then many years later they pulled my name up.
And tell me about that. I know when I was covering this procedure, sometimes people think that's kind of a scary thing. Bone marrow, they're going to cut you open, pull out a bone, and take a big chunk or something like that. But tell us a little bit, share with the people here what it actually, the procedure is and what it involves.
It's actually a little bit embarrassing how easy it is, because I think when you hear about stories of people like myself who've donated, people tend to make it a big deal, because it is a big deal for the patients and the recipients. It can really save someone's life. But when you actually have done it, it's actually so easy and so safe and so straightforward that it is a little bit embarrassing in terms of how much attention it gets. So in my case, the procedure, it was there was no pain. There was a very straightforward. Basically, I received general anesthesia, and then later that day I was awake, and I was back to my regular routine in a day or two.
So you weren't hospitalized for long periods of time. It's basically a one-day procedure?
Yeah, so it was very, and I think that of the different ways, and there's so much developing science and technology, so there are different ways that it can happen, and my understanding, the way I did was one of the more complex. And even with that, it was still very, very straightforward, easy. And I think that one of the things when we hear about the odds, we should remember is that we can actually change the odds. If we have more community members sign up and just begin to dispel some of the cultural myths in our community about being afraid of going to the doctor or going to the hospital, and if everyone participates, everyone actually does much better off.
Well, and one thing, I don't know if this was the same with your case, but when I did this story on this Vietnamese child, his brother was basically in the hospital and then released that same day. And all they did was, they put him under general anesthesia, but they just took a needle and then just extracted it. So there was no big operation, no big surgery. And the mother was looking at this small bag, almost like a blood donor bag, and saying, "This is my son's life right here." And it must be an amazing feeling too to know that you have this connection then with this other person.
Yeah, so about a month ago, I met the girl who received my bone marrow. She's a 13-year-old girl, and she's doing great. And, again, I think when you hear the actual stories of individuals, and I think pretty much everyone knows somebody who has had to deal with cancer. And if we just recognize that they're on the other end of these procedures. Again, for me, it was general anesthesia. And so the most pain I felt was just that little pinprick of getting an IV. And again, it's a little bit embarrassing how easy it is, but it's just a little bit random that your bone marrow could be the bone marrow that could save someone's life. And all you have to do is sign up, and it can really make a difference.
Well, and all three of you are so wonderful to be here and sharing your time and your stories. I think we want to talk to you, Thi, about where your booth is and how people might be able to actually help, and are you actually doing the kits here today?
Yes, so our booth is right here, right behind these tents on the deck right there. And if you're 18 to 44 years old, please come register. It's really easy. So consent form, cheek swab, that's it, you're done.
Okay, all right, very good. And we just want to see, does the mascot have anything to say?
Yes, feedback.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Please, a big round of applause for Thi, Ryan, and also Vincent. Thank you for coming. And
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And Komi.